Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Today we're going to look at the accounts payable role inside of Business Central. We're going to look at managing accounts payable, vendors, and workflow, applying vendor payments to unpaid purchase invoices, the payment process using the suggest vendor payment process, and then printing and voiding checks in Business Central. Let's get started.
Hello, my name is Colin Pick, and you may remember me from other Business Central webinars here at Profit. Today we're going to take a look at how you can more effectively manage your accounts payable in Business Central. We'll take a look at things such as how to find your vendor balances, some visual indicators we may have available to us on the home page. We'll also take a look at some reports and statements available to us to help us in identifying who we need to pay and when. Let's jump into Business Central to take a look. So here we are on the Business Central homepage, and we can see immediately that there are a few quick visual indicators we have in regards to accounts payable. For example, we have our overdue purchase invoice amount right here, and we can see it has a red bar on it indicating that this is something that we should take a look at. So we can drill into this amount further if we'd like, but let's go further a little bit here on our homepage and see what else we have available to us. We can see that we have some ongoing purchase orders available here, as well as we got a tab here showing us that we have 31 outstanding vendor invoices and 1 unprocessed payment. Okay, so right when you log into Business Central, and you have these dashboards available to you, you can see that there are things to look at right away in regards to AP. So that's a great way to get started with how we can manage our day and manage our AP better. Next, let's navigate over to our vendor list. I'm going to use my vendor link here, and now I'm presented with a list of all the vendors I have in the system. We can see we have 2 columns here available to us, the balance due column and the balance column. So the difference between these 2 amounts is that the balance due is only showing you the amounts that are overdue, and the balance column is showing you the balance of all the invoices in the system. Okay, so let's take a quick look here. I'm going to click on the amount. We can see that it is going to list all of the invoices in the system for vendor 10,000. Whereas if I just clicked on the balance due, we're only going to get the invoices that are overdue. And of course, I know they're overdue because they're highlighted here in red. So just another visual indicator. Back on the client list here, I just want to point out the fact box. So this also holds information in regards to the vendor. And of course, the amounts on this fact box are hyperlinks, so you can drill into them to see what's making up these balances. So let's dig into this vendor listing a little bit more. Let's see the other options we have available to us on the top ribbon. In regards to reporting, we can print the vendor listing, or we have a whole slew of out-of-the-box reports available to us. So from here, I can print my aged accounts payable if I'd like, or my vendor trial balance. We also have a whole bunch of other reports available to us here. Looking further, we have the ability to filter this list. So let's assume that I wanted to filter the list for anything that had a balance due. Let's say that's greater than 10,000. So I can use my filter to filter the list in real time. I'm going to get rid of my fact box, and now we can see I'm only showing the 3 vendors that have balances greater than $10,000. If I'd like, I can save this filter. So that I can easily switch between my filters. So right here we got the all, so this is just the list wide open. And now I have this greater than $10,000 filter here that I can apply with the click of a button. So the last thing I wanted to talk to you guys today was just about the workflows we have available to us in the system. So I'm going to search for my workflow templates. I'm not going to go into great detail. I just want to make you guys aware that these are here. So for example, you can do workflows on vendor approval. So if you need approval before setting up a vendor, you can do that here. As well, you can do workflows on purchase orders or purchase invoices. So for example, if you wanted your purchase order to be approved before it's posted on the system, you can use this workflow template to do that. So that takes us to the end of this Managing Your AP webinar. Please reach out to Profit if you would like to go more in depth on how you can manage your accounts payable process in Business Central. Thanks. Welcome back to another webinar presented by Profit Business Group. I am Colin Pick, and you may remember me from other Business Central webinars. Today we're going to take a look at applying payments to invoices. We'll start by identifying invoices that need to be paid, and then we'll move along and I'll show you how to apply payments either during the payment process or after a payment has been processed. Continuing on, I'll also highlight the bank statement import features available to us in Business Central to help in reconciling our banks. We'll take a look at the Yodlee bank feed service and the option to import transactions from a CSV file. Let's jump into Business Central to take a look. Okay, so here we are on my Business Central demo environment. So first question is, how do we identify vendors and open invoices in the system? Well, I can use my tile here on the home page, outstanding vendor invoices. We can see there's 31 in the system. So if I click on this here, it'll show all 31 in the system. And so we can see we're presented with a whole slew of invoices that are available to be paid now. The ones here listed in red are more urgent, and that's because they are past their due date. So just a quick visual indicator there, indicating that these ones are probably ones you want to focus on. So as we kind of review this list, we can see that these ones all have remaining amounts, and therefore they are all in open status. Okay, and as I look through the list here, I can see there is quite a bit for vendor number 10,000, so let's work with that vendor. I'm going to navigate now to my payment journal, and I'll create a payment for that vendor, and we'll apply it to some of those outstanding invoices. So I'm going to use the default dates here in the system. We got a document number already generated for us, and my account number, I'm going to choose vendor 10,000, which is Fabricam. I'm not going to enter an amount because that is going to be automatically generated when I choose the invoices I want to pay. So let's do that now. I'm going to go to Process and Apply Entries. And now we can see we're greeted with all of those invoices in the system that we saw earlier, but this is now filtered only for vendor number 10,000, as we can see by this little filtering sign here. Okay, and so if I want to choose which payments I want, or which invoices I want to pay with my payment, I can go to Process now and set my Applies to ID. And so this G04001 number, this is my actual document number here, right? So what it's doing is telling us that payment G04001 is paying these two invoices, okay? So I'm going to also set my Applies to ID for this invoice as well. And so we can see here that I do get now a balance here showing. And I'm going to hit OK. And now this populates as my amount. So just going to go a little bit further here and finish my payment. So we can see that I'm going to be paying it out of the checkings account. And we'll do a computer check. And basically, that's all I would need to do to process a payment and apply it to invoices. Okay, so let us next consider the scenario where a payment has been entered into the system, but at the time of entry of that payment, it was not applied to any invoices. How would we go ahead and apply that payment to the invoices after the fact? Well, that's a very simple answer, and I'm going to navigate over to my vendor listing, and I'm going to choose my Fabricam vendor here. And we can see that we do have one payment entered in, and this one does not have anything applied to it yet, and we have two unapplied invoices as well. So how do we apply this payment to these invoices? Well, simply we're going to go to Process and Apply Entries. So we're greeted with a very similar window that we would have saw on our payment application window. And so what we want to do is confirm the amount. So that's the amount of our payment, and we can see there is a balance here. So to apply the payment to these invoices, I'm going to use Process and set my Applies to ID. And this time it's going to use my vendor ID it's going to use my user ID as the applies to ID. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing with my other vendor or with my other invoice. I'm going to set the applies to ID, and once that's done, we can see my balance goes down to 0. And so when I'm finished with this, I can go to process and post application. Okay. And we can see my application was successfully posted, and now I no longer have any outstanding invoices due for payment. All right, guys, so the last thing I want to talk to you about today would be the bank statement importing features available to us in Business Central. So I'm going to navigate to one of our bank statements here. And I'm not going to get into too much detail in regards to these importing features. I just want to make you aware that they are available and that we do have many options available to us as well. So, oops, I put in bank statement. I'm going to go into bank reconciliations here instead. And I'm going to pull up one of our bank reconciliations available to us in the system. So there are 3 different ways I can mention right now that we can get on bank statement lines for our bank reconciliation. So the first method I want to talk about is just the manual entry method. So this would be straight up coming in here on my bank statements line section and just manually entering in the transactions that you see on your bank statement. Okay, so as you can imagine, this is incredibly time consuming, and there is a high chance of error when doing this. Okay, because it's data entry and you're entering lots of transactions, and you can see how possibly this could cause errors. The other option available to us would be to import our bank transactions from a file. So for example, a CSV file. I have gone on and set up my demo company here to allow for the importing of bank statements via CSV. It is quite an intensive process, so reach out to Profit if you would like help in setting up your Business Central for that, and as well as how you would have to modify your file to make it available to import. I'm just going to show you quickly the file that I'm going to be importing here in the system. So we can see here I just have a simple 3-line file with 4 different columns. So we got the date, the vendor ID or the description, and the amount, and what my document number is going to be. Okay, so if I have everything set up correctly in the system as I should, all you're going to have to do is go to bank, import your statement, you'll choose your file, and now it's into the system. Okay, so we can see we got all my transactions here with the amounts and what the descriptions are. Okay, so then from here you could go ahead and use your auto match automatically, or you could match manually to your transactions in the system. The final method I wanted to talk about was importing your transactions using the Yodlee bank fee service. So this one's not actually set up here in the system at this time, but I'll just talk about it briefly for you. So if you were set up with the Yodlee bank feed service, all you would have to do would be go to bank and import your bank statement, and it's going to pull up another window that's going to ask you, from which bank you want to import your transactions and for which date. Okay, so that service links directly to your bank account, and you can start importing transactions daily if you'd like, and based on your cutoff date, it's going to pull in all the transactions that you don't already have in there, right? So that allows you to import transactions in real time and allows you to stay incredibly up to date with your bank reconciliations, and it's very simple to use and very time saving. So if you would like help with that as well, please reach out to Profit, and we'd be glad to set that up for you. Thanks.
As someone doing accounts payable in Business Central, one of the things we have to do is be more efficient with the invoices we're paying. So that means not paying invoices before their due dates and taking appropriate discounts on invoices. Today we're going to look at the suggest vendor payments process inside of Business Central, how to get to the vendor, suggest vendor payments options available, and how to view apply records to payments. Let's get started. When you make vendor payments, you want to do it from the payment journal page. Payment journal is the general journal that is optimized for making payments and includes a number of powerful functions such as suggest vendor payments function that finds vendor payments that are due based on the due date. It also has the vendor summary aging report that shows overview of the due vendor payments. You can start the process of making payments from lists, cards, and ledger entries for vendors, customers, and employees. Let's start off by looking at our home page. We can look at the purchase documents due today. This will be the list of all purchase invoices that are due for the payment date. So if we click on this, it'll bring up the purchase documents due today list. Here's all the open invoices that are due. If we scroll over, we'll see that we have a due date of the 31st. Our working date is April, which is after this due date. That's why it's suggesting all these payments to be paid. And we can go ahead and actually get to the payment journal directly from this particular screen. So if we go to actions, we can create payment from all these invoices. So that'd be one way of getting to it, and I'll show you another way of getting to the exact same screen. Another way of accessing the payment journal is going to the search here. We're going to type in payment journals, and we're going to bring up our specific payment journal. As you can see, it's pre-populated some of the information for us in here. And we're going to now go to related and payments, and we're going to select suggest vendor payments. This will bring up a wizard for us that will allow us to basically define some options. So the last payment date is the date we want to use as, so basically everything prior to this date will be included, or everything prior to this date with a due date prior to this date will be included in our check batch. The summarize per vendor, I would suggest leaving this checked off. What this does is it allows us to, it'll create one line per vendor. If with this unchecked, it'll create multiple lines per vendor for each apply amount. And this is by currency as well. And then our payment date, and we also have the ability to select specific filters. So for example, if we wanted only vendors with a certain payment code or a certain vendor number, or we could use payment priority. So we have a lot of different options to select here. The other thing we have is this show more fields button. What this allows us to do is, we can apply, find vendor payment discounts and apply those. We can use vendor priority. We can actually put in an amount. So let's say, cash flow issues and we're at the end of the month, and we only have, let's say, a couple $100,000, and our payables are more than that. We could put in that up to amount, and it'll suggest vendor payments up to that particular dollar value. So very powerful feature. I'll turn this off for right now. So once we have everything defined that we want to use, we would hit OK. What this will do is it'll go through our list and suggest vendor payments for us. So as you can see, there's 5 different payments here with amounts that are to be paid. I can also select a specific payment here and then go to process and go to apply entries. What this will do is it'll show me all the invoices that make up that payment. So we have a $2,689 payment amount, and these are the 3 invoices that make up that particular payment amount with the apply to amounts. That is the suggest vendor payment process in Business Central. If you'd like to learn more about the suggest vendor payment process, please contact us at Profit by visiting us at www.profit.ca. Thank you. As someone doing accounts payable, After we've ran the suggest vendor checks process, the next thing we have to do is the check printing process. And sometimes due to checks getting stuck in a printer or check stock getting voided, we have to actually void checks. So today we're going to look at how to print checks in BC and how to void the check that has been printed and then reprint that check. Let's get started. Once we've created our payment journal and ran the suggest vendor payments process, we're now ready to print our checks. Two things we want to make sure on the payment journal that we've filled out correctly is the bank payment type. So in this case, I've set this to computer check, but this could easily be manual check or electronic payment if we did not actually want to print the checks. So these have to be set for each one of the payments that we're going to process. And the other field we need to populate is the payment method has to be set to a check payment for paying by check, or as you can see, there's other payment methods that are available to us here. So I'll just go through and select each one of these. And we are now ready to go ahead and process our check. So the next thing we want to do is actually click on the check button. And now we can preview the checks, we can print the checks. So let's just hit preview. This will run a report for us. As you can see, we're now seeing the first document, the amount, how it's going to show up, the payee, all that sort of information on the document. If I wanted to see this particular one, I can do the same thing. I would go to check once again, and we would preview the Graphic Design Institute check here as well. So to actually now print the checks, we're going to go back to check and we're going to select print check. So this is bringing up a wizard for us once again, where we can select which account we're using, the last check number. So if we're using pre-printed stock, check stock, we want to have the last check number be the number we're putting into the printer to print on. We can select one check per vendor if we wanted, per document, which we wouldn't do. We could reprint checks, we could do a test print, pre-printed stub. So we have a lot of different options here that are available to us. And then we can preview the option or actually print, or we could send to PDF as an example. So we've now put our check stock into the printer. We're ready to print our checks. So within the wizard, I have all the options I would want selected. I'm going to hit the print button. It's now generating report, and I'm now ready to print the physical checks. So as you can see here, I have the first check that's printing out, second check, third check, on and on. So there's also different check formats you can use if you wanted to. You can switch those to be, check stub stub or stub check. So in this case, it's stub and then the check below that. Once we've printed, I'm just going to cancel here and not physically print these, but we would now have printed the checks, and we're ready to now post the checks going forward. We also have the option to void check. So for example, if we printed a check and something happened with the printer, we can easily go back into check, select void check. And this specific check that we have highlighted, we're going to void this one. So we're voiding 202, we're going to click yes. This allows us to now void that specific check. And we could go ahead and go back to our check process, and we're going to go back to print check again. If I select, our next check number is now 204, as you can see, and I would go ahead and hit print. And as you can see, it's only printed the one check, not the 5 or so checks we had in the past batch process here. So hit cancel. So that's the process. Now we're ready to go ahead and post our particular check batch. We've printed all our checks. We would go to post. Yes, we want to post all the journal lines. Let's go ahead and posting all those lines. Everything's been posted within our payment journal. So that is the check printing process and the void check process. If you'd like to learn more about the payment journals and posting and printing checks, please contact us at Profit by visiting us at www.profit.ca. Thank you.